Hello and welcome to the first in a new series of videos looking at the basics of tropical gardening here in the UK. Hopefully you find it helpful whether you're either looking at starting a brand new tropical garden this year or you've just bought a couple of these bold exotic plants and you wanted to know some care tips and advice to keep them growing throughout the year. There's never been a better time to get involved with tropical gardening here in the UK, and this last year has definitely seen a surge in popularity, just going off the amount of new members and posts in the various Facebook groups I'm in. So, maybe lockdowns helped this, probably last year's warm spring. I think people definitely appreciate the gardens a lot more, and realising that they can transform their outdoor space to somewhere that might remind them of places on holiday where you can't currently go. I think it can be easy as an outsider to see these kind of plants and this style of gardening as being both expensive and high maintenance. And I won't lie, it can be both those things and more. But it doesn't have to be. Just because a plant's rare doesn't mean it's hard to grow, and some of the most impressive plants are actually relatively straightforward to look after. It's not all about big expensive specimen plants either, and if you check out my recent video on tropical gardening to a budget in the UK, you'll see that there's lots of methods you can use to actually grow a garden very quickly and create that wow effect over just one summer. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get it going, and a lot of these plants really will surprise you with how fast they can grow. First things first then, what is a tropical style garden? Here in the UK, we obviously don't have a tropical climate with massive humidity and high temperatures all year round. So for me, tropical is more of a generic term. I don't just mean the tropical plants that would thrive in a jungle environment. I think the words tropical and exotic style garden can be used to cover a variety of plants. It's more about the overall look of the garden, creating that aesthetic, whether that's a jungle environment or more of an arid style Mediterranean garden. The word tropical is a handy term to cover a lot of these style of plants and the overall effect they create. It's a cliche, but it's true. Here in the UK, we like nothing more than talking about the weather, usually moaning about it. But the reality is, at least in terms of growing plants, we're massively lucky. We're spoiled to have such a good climate that allows us to grow plants from all kinds of different habitats around the world. Mediterranean style plants from warm temperate regions can grow here. We can grow subtropical plants, and definitely for summer we can grow tropical plants outside, even houseplants here in our gardens. I think if you're new to tropical style gardening, or maybe gardening in general, it's easy to be overwhelmed by the sheer variety of plants available and all the differing care requirements, whether they'll last outside or winter, whether they have to be protected, or equally you might have gone the other way, bought a load of plants and not know what to do with them, not know that it could be quite straightforward to keep them going over winter. So to make it easy, I've broken plants up into several groups to make it easy to categorise them, plan ahead, and keep your garden looking great all year round. Starting things off then, hardy exotics. It might surprise a lot of people, but there's actually quite a large range of exotic looking, tropical looking plants that are perfectly hardy here in the UK. They don't require a lot of care at all, and they can survive all but the very worst winters. These include Trachycarpus fortunei, the windmill palms that are actually getting quite common now, Fatsia japonica. There's a lot of shrubs and plants that look exotic, that look like they don't belong here in the UK, but can actually take a lot of snow and frost and don't require any care at all. These plants could easily be complemented by other UK tropical looking plants such as heucheras, hostas, rogersias. They'd fit in with a lot of styles of garden, but if you work them in with these exotic looking plants, a really dense planting, it's a great way of creating an exotic looking garden, but one that doesn't require a lot of care or any sort of winter protection. A lot of the plants that I would classify in this group, such as Cordylines and Phormiums, are actually really common and you see them growing in a lot of front gardens. But creating that wow sort of tropical garden, it's not about how rare the plants are or how widely planted they are. It's more about the effect, the illusion of the tropics. So by using these plants, but maybe using multiples, really packing them in tightly, you can create a whole different atmosphere and a garden that will stand out from any other one in the streets. Whilst it would be completely possible and practical to build a whole garden full of these hardy exotics that don't require any care, I think at some point, sooner or later, you're going to see a plant that requires a little bit of extra care, something that's really got that exotic vibe, big leaves, but unfortunately it won't be alright outside all year round. And this is probably my second category of plants, those that require a bit of care during the colder parts of winter, but other than that, they're absolutely fine for the rest of the year. I'll look at the topics of plant hardiness in a future episode, but let's just say some of the more special plants require a little bit more care to get them through the winter. You could say agaves. A lot of people don't see those growing, especially in the north of England, but they might require a bit of an overhead cover to stop the rain getting into them over winter. Feather palms can really look impressive, and they can add that vibe, but Trachycarpus just doesn't. But again, they might need wrapping up just to protect them during the coldest spells of winters if you live in a cooler part of the country. I've mentioned it in a previous video, but I think it's worth emphasising. If you're shopping at a garden centre or looking online and you're looking at these kind of plants, these slightly more unusual palms and exotics, if you haven't seen them growing in a lot of gardens around you, just do a quick bit of research, look online and find out are they a suitable choice for your area. If you live in the colder parts of the UK, in the north, Scotland, they might not be a realistic choice and it's definitely not going to end well. Likewise, you might find out with just a little bit of protection through maybe the coldest 3 or 4 nights of the year, they're absolutely fine and will be a great choice for your garden. Following it through then, we've looked at plants that can definitely survive winter, certainly in the majority of the UK. Ones that you can plant and not really have to do anything with. Secondly, are those which should survive winter with a little bit of care, maybe overhead cover, maybe a bit of fleece wrapping during the colder spells. So thirdly then, are the plants that definitely won't survive our winters outside, or at least are very unlikely to do so. More tender plants, and these are generally one of 3 kinds. You can either grow, say, Morellii banana plants, which need to be brought inside, dry stored, or kept in a greenhouse over winter. You get other plants like cannas that can be chopped down, just potted up and brought into a shed or greenhouse again over winter. And then you get the annuals that you can grow from seed. These definitely won't survive the winters, but it doesn't matter because come the next spring you can plant them and begin the whole journey again. I'll look at the subjects of watering and feeding in future episodes, but on the whole, other than maybe tree ferns that require regular moisture, a lot of these tropical and exotic plants aren't especially demanding of either water or food. So really, the main classification, the main way that I would look at them, is just in terms of what you need to do over winter. A lot of these plants can look completely different. There's a massive diverse range of leaves and size, colours, but if you just break it down into what can definitely survive and doesn't require looking after, what needs a bit of care, and what definitely needs to be brought in over winter or grown from seed, it's a lot easier and simpler to see the pieces that you can use to put your tropical garden together. Hopefully I haven't bored you with my ramblings and little slideshow pictures, and that's given you a bit of an idea of what I believe a tropical garden is in the UK and the different groups of plants you can use to make it up. They might all look different, but once you start to do a bit of research and understand what needs what care, you can group a lot of them together and it becomes a lot simpler. I just wanted to end by looking at a few potential issues that your garden might have and how a tropical garden can be an answer to these. So firstly, if you've got a smaller garden or it's a front garden, I would personally prioritise the evergreens, those hardy exotics that I talked about. It's going to be a garden you see every day, people might be walking past it every day. You don't want it full of fleece in winter, and you want something that's going to look great all year round, not full of recovering plants that maybe take 3 or 4 months to come back after a bad winter. So my advice would be stick to those evergreens, stick to those colourful hardy exotics. I did actually do a video a bit back looking at my top choices for these, which would be a great shout. Secondly, if maintenance is the issue, these again are a great answer. Anything that doesn't require a lot of care, these don't usually require pruning other than removing the odd old leaves, so they're a great choice in that respect. If you've got a shady garden that doesn't get a lot of sunlight, then look at plants that naturally thrive in these sort of locations. You can use a lot of native ferns, hostas. You can still create that big-leaved exotic jungle effect, maybe dotting a few Dixonia tree ferns to really give it that exotic vibe. And thirdly, if budget's the issue, Obviously, check out my video on budget gardening, but you can maybe grow a lot more from seed. Besides the obvious financial benefits from growing from seed and splitting up your can of rhizomes at the end of every year to make more plants, there's also the space aspect. Not everyone's lucky enough to have space to keep plants over winter or a greenhouse for overwintering, and growing from seed, rhizomes, corms is a great way of having all that foliage in summer but without the storage aspect of it in winter. So there's a few ideas for you. Like I said, coming up, I've got episodes looking at watering, feeding, hardiness, and a quick overview of how I put the design of a tropical garden together. Hopefully it's helped you. See you soon.